Hey everyone! Hey, this is Axel from Get Speaking English. Welcome to this live stream, or if you're not here live, welcome to the video. Since I'll be sharing this on YouTube afterwards, and I know some people will be watching it there. So grab a coffee, pen and a paper if you need it. Today we're going to be talking about B2 first and C1 advanced speaking part 3. So part 3 of the speaking paper. And this month we've been talking about education. So we're going to continue our discussion about education, topics related to education, but today thinking about that in relation to speaking part 3. All right. So just a heads up, this is a bit interactive, so you're more than welcome to respond into the Facebook chat. We're going to be looking at a variety of material together, so feel free to share your ideas. I'll add them to my notes, and then afterwards we'll have lots of things to refer to afterwards to help everybody who's studying and preparing for an exam. All right, perfect. So, also, I want to apologize a little bit. I know it's really dark in here. It's a very dark, cold day here in Canada, unfortunately. All right, so just a heads up. While this lesson is aimed at preparing people for the B2 first and the C1 advanced Cambridge exams, a lot of this vocabulary, these phrases we're going to talk about, will also be really useful if you are preparing for an IELTS exam, for example, or a general English exam, or if you just want to get speaking English at an upper intermediate to an advanced level of English. Since we're going to learn lots of phrases and useful vocabulary for sort of talking about specific topics in a more exact way. All right, perfect. So just a little bit of an overview about what we're going to look at today. So we're going to do a bit of a warm-up together. We are going to talk about some topics that you might see on an exam, again, related to education. But today we're going to talk about some problems in education and maybe some solutions. So on an exam, it's sometimes common to have to identify problems and then think of possible solutions for those problems. So we'll brainstorm a bit about that together. Then we're going to look at a part 3 style task. We're going to brainstorm some ideas for talking about that task, maybe come up with some model answers that we could all learn from. And then at the end, we're going to check out some idioms about education. So I have some things for you there. And then finally, as usual, I will share all the notes on Discord. I also intend to put this video up on YouTube as well, so you could refer to it afterwards if you'd like, and use it for studying and reviewing if you'd like. All right. So let's think about some problems and solutions with education, like I said. So, what are some common problems facing schools, and what are some possible solutions for these problems? So, feel free to sort of throw your ideas out in the chat if you're there. I also have a couple ideas as well. I think when we think about education and schools, funding comes up. And not just funding, but like inadequate funding. So when we have inadequate funding, that means there's not enough funding. So not enough money for people to do, for teachers to do what they want to do, or for schools to do what they want to do. Yeah. So, and that might, result in, might impact the quality of education, for example, a lack of resources. So, books, learning material, maybe computers, etc. Maybe also, um, inadequate uh, facilities. So, for example, maybe there's not enough room or enough space, maybe there's no libraries or labs, right? So, and again, feel free to throw your ideas in the chat, but maybe one thing schools could do is maybe, partnerships with businesses, for example. So, maybe students can go and either work in a bit, not necessarily work in a business, although internships, are really popular, that sort of thing. Um, but maybe the businesses could sponsor part of the school, for example, fundraisers, that's the thing that comes up, right? So when you have maybe events such as, sporting events or um, I don't know, sometimes people sell things, students might sell things to raise money for a school, right? Um, maybe they could also look into alternative funding sources like grants, for example. So, and a grant is basically a lot of money that you would get, usually from a government or an institution, and then that usually is used for a project, but it could also be used for some other means. So that might be something that, you know, they could do potentially. Um, thinking about funding, inadequate funding, so the lack of funding. I know I mentioned up here that there might be a lack of resources, right? So maybe a lack of computers and things like that. Um, I would think that, it might be really hard to keep up with the changes in technology, right? Right? I mean, obviously nowadays technology is a really important part in schools, right? Children are learning how to program, all sorts of things, right? So, but technology is constantly changing, right? So it can be really expensive to keep things updated, right? So that could be one really challenge. Like that could be one challenge. However, like I mentioned before, I mean, maybe they could create a partnership again with a business, with a technology company, maybe. Yeah, maybe potentially something like that, and they could maybe fix the computers or donate the computers. So that could be potentially something. If we're donating something, we're giving something for free. So that could be, I don't know, a possibility there, right? We're just brainstorming on these exams. It's just about generating ideas. Remember, the quality of your ideas are not really important. They just want to see that you are able to express yourself in English and talk about a variety of topics, right? So we're focusing on clear communication. So if our ideas are not amazing, that's fine. What's important is that we are communicating clearly and getting our ideas out there. Um, it might also be hard to, so under speaking about technology, it might be hard for teachers to stay up to date on new technology as well, right? And again, if you stay up to date with something, that means that you know about the current trends, you know about recent changes, right? And so that could be a lot with for that could be challenging for teachers because they have limited time, right? If you have limited time, that means um, that you have a very sort of a very finite amount of time. So you only have so much time to dedicate to X, Y, and Z. So you have to use your time wisely. So that could be hard for teachers, right? But maybe schools can, prioritize maybe training, resources towards training. Um, so yeah, maybe they could allocate some funds towards that. So put some money aside towards that. So lots of great things that we can do. And again, if you have an idea, feel free to throw it out there. Um, another thing that I think is, maybe facing schools right now, since we were talking about, inadequate funding, inadequate facilities, maybe overcrowding is a problem. So when there is overcrowding or when a place is overcrowded, that means there are too many people in one place, right? So we might have too many children all together in the same classroom, which obviously makes it hard to give, individual attention to everyone, right? So it could be hard to address the specific needs of one person when you have a whole pile of students, right? So that could be something. So there, maybe we could use online learning. So, for example, maybe if students are learning from everywhere, if they can learn from home or from other different places, then there's no need to have a physical classroom, maybe. I mean, that could potentially be one way to resolve this question. Again, I don't know 100%. But we're just generating some ideas, you know. Um, there's also the possibility, I mean, I guess they could just potentially construct new buildings, or maybe, I don't know, maybe repurpose maybe older buildings for, classroom spaces or something. I have no idea. But again, if you have some ideas, feel free to throw them out. Again, like I mentioned, the quality of your ideas is not necessarily the most important thing, but we want to focus on communication, right? All right, perfect. So let's talk about part three a little bit. So if you're unaware, B2 first, C1 advanced. These are exams that are done with a partner, so with another candidate, or sometimes you might have two other candidates that you do the exam with, but usually it's with just one candidate. So another candidate, and then you have the examiner. There's another examiner as well, but you're really only interacting with one examiner. And at this part of the speaking paper, it's actually a collaborative task. So you and your partner have to work together on this task, all right? So what happens during this part of the exam is that you're going to get a piece of paper, and this piece of paper is going to have a question in the middle, and then it's going to have like five points around it. And all these points sort of have different ideas on it. And then the idea is that you have to talk about the question, so discuss this question, taking into consideration the various points that are on the page. So, and this part lasts for 2 minutes, so you're going to take that time to discuss the different points with your partner, and then after that you'll be asked to discuss another follow-up question, and then that lasts for about another minute. Yeah, so you can see here that I have a sort of a rough idea of what it looks like. The examiner will say, basically reiterate what's written on the page. So here, for example, it says, here are some tools students might use to help them study, and a question for you to discuss. And first, you have some time to look at the task. So here, you'll have about 15 seconds to read everything on here. Maybe think of your points, but 15 seconds are not a lot, right? So it's really just so you can read the information on the page and have a general idea about what you're going to talk about. And then they'll go and they'll say, now talk to each other about how these tools could help students study more effectively, right? So again, they just reiterate basically the question that's written on the page, and now you'll have to discuss this with them. All right, so just to make it a little clearer, like I said, it's basically a discussion, right? So you might want to start with 1 point, for example. Candidate 1 might talk a little bit about that point, and then maybe ask your partner for their opinion on the point too, right? And so it's just a bit of a back and forth as you continually talk about these topics and have a bit of a discussion, okay? So just a few general things to keep in mind. We don't want to repeat a lot of what your partner says. I mean, you could clarify, for example. That's really common to do in a conversation, but try to bring original ideas to the conversation. Also, we have to remember that this is not a monologue, so some people might go and they will start, maybe they'll talk about social media groups and forums. They have a lot of great ideas about this. They'll talk, but they end up taking up a lot of time. So we don't want to do that. We are being judged on our ability to have a conversation. So we're going to keep our contributions a bit short. It's not a monologue. And as always, ask your partner to agree or disagree, that sort of thing, all right? Also, another point, we don't have to talk about every single point on the page, okay? Some students, they will rush, try to get through as many as possible. We don't want to do that. Instead, we want to talk about a variety of points, but have a good conversation, okay? So most good discussions talk about maybe 3, maybe 4 points. So have variety in your conversation, but you don't have to hit every single point on the page. So we don't have to do that. All right, perfect. So here's the task, really big, so we can see it all again. And so let's brainstorm some ideas. So again, how can these tools help students study more effectively? We have study apps, so applications on our phones, for example, social media groups and forums, online tutoring platforms, day planners and calendars, and audio and video resources. All right. So And again, feel free to throw out your ideas in the chat. I'll add them to our notes. And so at the end, we can compile lots of great resources to refer to. So let's talk, maybe we'll start with study apps, for example. So one thing, I'm just going to copy and paste my notes here, I think, today. So, I mean, there are lots of apps, obviously, for reviewing flashcards and practice exams. So if you don't know, flashcards are usually where you have, maybe a question on the back, on the front, and then you flip it for the back, and it's great for reviewing material. So lots of apps for reviewing flashcards and practice exams. They can help you remember things, so recall things that you've learned and test your knowledge about the materials, right? So those are some ideas, right? Flashcards. And also apps for doing practice exams could be really great. I think too, right? Also nowadays, it's really common for book publishers to create an app for their book as well, right? And that's really handy for students. Oftentimes, the apps might have additional videos or lecture notes. So, like I said, it's very handy. If something is really handy, that means it's very, very helpful, very convenient. Right, oftentimes the apps might also have additional videos or lecture notes. So we talk about a lecture, that's usually when somebody sort of stands at the front of a classroom and they give a presentation, right? Usually at the, a university, for example. And then these notes are oftentimes related to the lecture, right? Yeah, so that could be potentially something. Again, if you have some ideas, just let me know. How about online tutoring platforms? So those are really, really getting really, really common nowadays, right? So, I mean, those are great because they can provide, students with one-on-one support from experienced tutors, for example, right? So if we talk about something one-on-one, that means like one tutor, one person, instead of a group of people, right? So really fantastic. They could also help students. So these could also help students on, study specific topics, right? If we talk about a specific topic, I mean just, one topic, narrowing in on something very, very exact. Maybe they could provide feedback, so they could also help students study specific topics, provide feedback on assignments maybe, and help students prepare for an exam, right? Oops, an exam. Right. So assignments might be little projects and things that you need to do. As part of a course, for example. Also at work, for example, it's common to have various assignments and things that you need to do, different projects, right? So anything that you are assigned to do, that you are told to do, that's kind of an assignment. So, really great. Um, you know, online tutoring platforms might be really great because, they are convenient for students who need maybe flexible scheduling, right? Especially it's common today for students to have to work, go to school, have family, juggle all sorts of different things, right? So if they need a flexible schedule, if they need flexible anything, but flexible scheduling, um, able to change depending on their needs. So they can adapt it for their needs, right? And obviously, if something is really, really convenient, that means that it's very useful. They're able to do it when they want. It's easy for them. Um, exactly. So really convenient for students who need flexible scheduling. Um, they might also be really great for students who live in remote areas as well, right? So if we talk about if you live in a remote place, you live far from the city or the town centers, like the urban centers, you kind of you live far away. So it might be harder for you to travel to get to a physical university, for example. So those might be really great if you sort of live in an isolated, remote area. Yeah, so really fantastic. Um, so how about day platters and schedules? So day planners and calendars. Um, yeah, actually, so really, really, really a quick note about this, actually, that I wanted to bring up. So in the UK, it's common for them sometimes to call a day planner a diary. All right. So if I talk about a day planner, I mean kind of like a book where you would put all of your appointments in, right? In the UK, they call this a diary. Um, so basically a date book. However, in the US, for example, in Canada, when we think about diary, we think about a book where you write about your day, for example, or your personal reflections, right? Maybe even about your hopes and dreams, right? It's often something that maybe a child might keep, for example. So sometimes I work with students who, they are working with people here in Canada, in the US, and they talk about having a diary, but we always think about it this way. So instead, we actually call our diaries here. Instead, we call them uh, an agenda, for example. Also, a day planner or just a planner for short. Also, you can call it a journal as well. Yeah, but yeah, so kind of an important little distinction. So if you happen to be talking to somebody here in the US or Canada, especially if it's, professional or something, try to use one of these words instead of a diary, because like I said, when we hear the word diary, we think about like a little like a more personal book where he would keep those sort of notes. So really important to know that difference. All right, so going back here, right? So how can day planners and calendars help students? Well, you know, I think when you're a student, you always have a lot of things on your plate. So, a lot of things going on, right? Um, so it's really common to have to, schedule your different assignments, maybe, and deadlines, right? So you can use day planners or journals or other, scheduling apps to keep track of everything, right? So that's really important. And if we keep track of something, it just means that, you're aware about what's happening. You are, you're keeping it in your mind, you're paying attention to it. Yeah, so when you have lots of deadlines, lots of things going on, right? It's really important to have a good system to keep track of all that information so you don't forget about everything. Yeah, it's also, like I said, really useful for keeping track of different assignments and deadlines. It's also important for keeping track of your class schedule, for example. So when I talk about the schedule, we mean like the timing, when does everything take place? Maybe you have biology class on a Monday in the morning, and then you have like an English class on Tuesday afternoons, for example, right? So that schedule, basically what you have on what day, what time. So that's those details about the times there. So that's your schedule, what's going on day by day, hour for hour, right? Yeah, so, and all of this is really useful because it helps keep you maybe focused on your work. So, and if we're focused on something, that means that we're really we're concentrating on it, right? So we're concentrating on it, we're thinking about it. We're not distracted by lots of things going on because we have our calendar to let us know what we're supposed to be doing at any given time so we can use our time better. How about some audio and video resources? And again, if you have some ideas, just throw them out in the chat. And again, I'll add them to our notes here so everybody can benefit from it later. Yeah, so lots of audio and video resources nowadays, right? I know when I went to school, not so much, but now you can learn anything online, right? Lots of things going on, right? So lots of people, learn better by watching videos and listening to audio. Or I should maybe say lots of people learn best by watching videos and listening to audio explanations, for example. So they can be a really maybe engaging and effective way to learn about a topic, right? So if something is engaging, that means it holds your interest. So again, you're not distracted, but you're really interested in what's happening. Um, and you learn more as a result, right? Because you're not distracted by lots of things going on, right? So yeah, so these kind of methods, videos in particular, really engaging. And because of that, they're really effective. So that means that they work really well, right? Yeah, so lots of great things, right? Um, audio, let's see, audio and video resources. Uh, audio and videos, actually, this is cool. Audio and videos can also be really helpful uh, because students could use them to, I don't know, review key concepts, maybe. So if we review something, that means that we're going back, we're sort of looking at things that we've already learned before, but we're just reminding ourselves about what we learned, right? So to review something, look at something we've already learned before, so we can remember it better. So it gets fresh in our memories and fresh in our minds, right? Um, yeah. Um, you know, they can also provide students with alternative maybe explanations or demonstrations, which are helpful for understanding complex topics, maybe. So, if something is an alternative, that means that, you know, maybe your teacher explains something one way, but then you can go online and you can find a different explanation that's still explaining the same topic, but it's different. So it helps you maybe grasp the topic better, or you know, maybe you didn't understand your teacher's explanation, but you can find something else that makes more sense, right? So, an alternative, it's basically like another option of doing the same thing in this case. So, an alternative explanation. And if we talk about a demonstration, those are often when they show you how to do something. So for example, if you're building something, it might be really, really helpful to have a video where you can see the steps, watch somebody do it in person, or not in person, but watch somebody do it in real time, right? And through that demonstration, it will help you learn it better, right? So yeah, so a demonstration when you're showed how to do something. All right, perfect. And lastly, let's talk about social media groups and forums. And again, so if you have some ideas, throw them out in the chat. Um, so how can social media groups and forums help students study more effectively? I suppose I should maybe make a little, just like a little distinction. So in case you're not sure, so a forum is kind of a place where lots of people can go. You can post usually about different topics. So somebody might make a main post and then you would add comments to it. So popular forums, well, popular things that kind of seem like a forum, or like Discord, depending on how it's set up, for example, or Slack is kind of has a forum feel to it. Reddit, for example. Yeah, so you'll have one person who makes the question and then you can talk under it. So yeah, so these are great tools for communicating with one another, right? So Maybe these are helpful because learners can connect with one another and ask questions or share resources, right? Yeah, right? Because you're able to post, and then other people can read your post a little bit later. They can comment. You can go back to that information and review it later, or find it maybe a few years from now if you're searching and need help on that topic. So they're helpful in those ways. Also, groups can be useful, maybe a useful source of motivation and support for students. So here motivation is basically like the state or the idea of being motivated to do something. And if you're motivated to do something, that means that, you really want to do it. You're kind of pushed to do it. Is like an inner push, like you want to do it, right? Not other people. Yeah. So that can help you as well, right? So students can, you can keep each other motivated, lift each other up a bit, right? Yeah. Sometimes studying is really lonely, so you could use these methods to feel connected to other students or other people in the same boat. So here's a great idiom. If you're in the same boat, that means you're in the same situation. Yeah, so I mean that could be really, really helpful, right? So lots of great things that we can do. Lots of really fantastic things. Yeah, so I think that's all these some ideas here, right? So putting everything together, right? Like I mentioned, it's a conversation, right? So you would take kind of one point, talk about it for a little bit, then maybe move on to another point, talk about that for a little bit, move on to another point, and you would basically do that until the examiner tells you to stop, right? So until until those 2 minutes are up, right? So you would have that discussion. So, obviously, there's going to be lots of opportunity here for, transition words and other sort of discourse markers to push the conversation along. So, I thought I would put together a little quiz for us all to work on. Um, Here I have sort of just like a demo, a little example model answer, right? And we're going to fill in the gaps with what you think is the best answer. So we have some options here. So one, a good point. How about, do you know what I mean? Speaking about, I agree. And what do you think? All right. So I'm going to give you guys just a minute to look at this. I'll give you about maybe 2 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss our answers. All right. So back. So I hope you got your answers. So let's check it out. So, well, for starters, I suppose there are lots of applications that can help students study better. For example, there are apps you could use to increase your productivity. Apps like those would really help students manage their time better. What do you think? I agree. There are also a lot of programs that help students review materials. Speaking about reviewing materials, flashcards are also really helpful. They are good for revising material and remembering facts over a long period of time. How about social media groups? Those are useful. Students can use them to connect with one another and help each other with their homework. Do you know what I mean? Yes, that's a good point. Also, students can use them to share resources with one another. Also, teachers can use them to communicate with students between classes. Right? Okay, yeah. So, some helpful language in here, right? So, for starters, for example, when we're starting that, conversation initially, we can signal that we want to start talking about this point, right? So, for starters, lots of useful applications. This person, said what they thought, and then they went and they asked their partner, well, what do you think? Right? So, it's always important for us to ask our partners what they think, how they feel, if they agree, disagree, that sort of thing. So, what do you think? And then this person says, I agree, right? And just a really, really, really quick note about this I agree. In English, agree is its own verb. We never say, for example, I am agree. This is an error that I hear a lot. This is not correct. We don't say that. Similarly, we do not say I know agree, but or I not agree, for example. We do not say that. We say I don't agree. So we don't. So we have to treat it like a normal, regular verb. So we're going to use do or don't. So I don't agree. So I agree, I don't agree. Yeah. So I agree. There are also a lot of programs that help students review materials. So again, to look back on that material, re-jog, refresh our memories. And then here, speaking about reviewing materials, flashcards are also really helpful. So here, this is kind of a nice way to sort of signal back to something you maybe just mentioned in the discourse or something that was brought up shortly before, right? So it's fresh in your mind, but you want to go back to that topic. So we can use this here. Speaking about X, Y, and Z, I think da 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 da. Yeah, so that's a great handy one. Right. So flashcards really helpful for revising material, and remembering facts over long periods of time. And then we say, how about social media groups? So here I've used how about to then talk about one of the specific things on the paper. So we could use that as well to ask our partner what they specifically think about one of the specific topics mentioned in the task. So that can be really useful as well, right? So yeah, so how about or what do you think about da da da? It's like, well, those are useful. Students could use them to connect with one another, help each other do their homework. Do you know what I mean? So another great way, this is really common more as a filler as like a filler phrase in English, like, you know what I mean? Like when we're talking about something, you'll hear people say that all the time. But you could use this as well, right? And it's just we just want to, confirm whether we really want to confirm or not, but we want to confirm that the person we're talking to understands our point of view. So it's really common for us to say, do you know what I mean? Or do you know what I'm saying? So you can use this as well, sprinkle that in there a bit with your conversation, and it's a great little phrase. Yeah, so do you know what I mean? And then this person is, yes, that's a good point. So we can say that if we agree with the point that somebody brought up. So that's something we can do. And then also students can use them to share resources with one another. Teachers can communicate with students between classes. Da 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 da. You would continue on until the examiner tells you to stop. And then that's that. Yeah, so some helpful phrases there. Like I said, focus on the quality of the conversation. Again, your ideas never need to be brilliant, nothing like that. Also, we never need to know, how to talk about every single topic in great detail. We just need to be able to talk generally about these topics, have a bit of a conversation, and that's all you need to do. So honestly, it's not super, super hard. It's really great. Once you get practicing with people, you'll feel really comfortable doing it. All right. So I know I promised that I would leave you all with some education-related idioms. So here's a couple here. So for starters, we say to be on the same page. So if you're on the same page about something, it means that you all either agree about something or everybody is up to date. They know what's going on about something. So, for example, here I've put it in a sentence. So social media groups are helpful for students when working on a group project, right? So when we're collaborating, we need to talk with one another. So they're really helpful for group projects. They allow students to communicate freely. So if you can communicate freely, you can do it anytime without restriction outside of the class, outside of class time. So they are all on the same page about what's to be done, about what's going on in the project. So everybody knows what's happening. They're all up to date. And they all agree, about what's happening with the project, right? Yeah. So if we're all on the same page, we're all on board, we're all equally knowledgeable about things that are happening. Okay, great. Also, we can pass something with flying colors. So that is just a fancy way to say that you do really, really well on something. So usually with an exam, but also with a project, for example. So here, when I did my English exam, I passed with flying colors because I used flashcards and apps with mock exam questions to help me prepare. So here you see that I did really, really, really well on my English exam because I was really prepared. If we talk about a mock exam questions or mock exam, mock here is kind of like a fake or like a practice exam, basically. So here we're talking about also a little detail here, because you can see here, I'll talk about this for just a second. We have OR and OUR. So here actually is the American spelling. While here is actually the UK spelling, which we also use in Canada. So that's the difference here. Both are correct. You will see both in the real world. Uh, which style you use depends on you. If you want to write with American spelling, write with American spelling. If you want to write with British spelling, write with British spelling. The most important thing is to try to be really consistent, right? So if you're writing in the British style of spelling, make sure that you're writing center instead of center, things like that, and with a ISE instead of IZE, those sort of things. So it doesn't matter which style you use on your writing part of the exam, just make sure that you're consistent with it, right? All right, perfect. All right, yeah. So there you go. Also here, so to know something inside and out means that you know it really, 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 really well. So you're almost an expert when you know something inside and out. So for example here, so I like to spend a lot of my time watching videos or listening to podcasts about the things that I'm studying. They give me an in-depth look at the material so I can know the topic inside and out. So you know it really, really, really well. If you're not sure what a podcast is, kind of similar to a radio program, but you would typically maybe download it. Like, it's not live. It's a recording afterwards, right? And usually it's people speaking, but sometimes it's music as well. And yeah, it's sort of similar to what you like a radio broadcast, for example, but it's not live. So podcasts are really, really popular now. If we talk about an in-depth look, something in-depth is just like it's very, very deep. For example, you get into all the details. Oh, maybe I spelled this wrong. No, that's right. Okay. So you get into all the details. Yeah, so here's an adjective. That's why it's connected. Get into all the details, know all the specifics about something. On your Cambridge exams, it's not necessary to talk in depth about topics. You just need to talk about things in a general way. But if you love to get into the nitty-gritty about things, you would maybe do a lot of research to look at things in an in-depth way. Yeah, so you can know the material inside and out. Also, to pull an all-nighter. So that just means to stay up all night. In this case, studying, because we're talking about being students, but obviously you can also pull all-nighters, doing a variety of other things as well. It just means that you don't sleep. So here, I don't like pulling all-nighters. I do better when I get enough sleep. That's why I try to plan my time wisely using my day planner and my Google Calendar. So if you plan your time wisely, or if you use your time wisely, that means you make the most of your time by, being really productive. You don't waste it. So it's sort of like another common idiomatic phrase that we might say, to use your time wisely. And then lastly, to pick someone's brain. So if you pick someone's brain, that means that you ask them lots of questions. Typically they are an expert on something, or they know something really well, and then you would pick their brain to get some information from them. So here, for example, personally, I really like to take online classes through an online tutoring platform. I like being able to pick my tutor's brains. Pick my tutor's brains There you go. Plural. When I'm struggling to understand something. All right, perfect. Yeah, so when you have a problem, it's not quite clicking for you, you can ask somebody else who's an expert. They can explain it a bit better. You can pick their brains about that topic and inform yourself. So, really, really, really useful. All right, so there we go. All of our notes, everything together. I want to thank everybody who came out. It was really fantastic to see you all today. As always, if you're looking for more opportunities to improve your English, I have lots going on social media. We have a couple different Telegram groups. There are public channels and then private, closed groups right now. However, everyone is still welcome to come join them. I am asking for a little bit of a donation right now because it takes me a lot of time and effort to organize everything, but it's not necessary, so just come and you can get on board. Just send me a message. We also have lots of content on Instagram as well, both for C1, so advanced level, and B2 intermediate level as well. And then also I have a couple general English channels as well, where I share primarily daily speaking prompts, so you can get speaking daily and practice that way. All right, perfect. Also, on Saturday, I have a reading class coming up. So feel free to come out. It's actually been really quiet. So that's lots of student talking time, lots of reading time. Really great. So this is Saturday at 1600 UTC. It's going to be a harder article, so an advanced level article. And to participate in this, you just want to go register on Calendly. You'll get a link to the Zoom meeting there when you sign up, or if you are part of the closed Telegram groups, you can watch there. I share the link there as well. However, do show up during the within the first, I want to say, 5 minutes, because lately people haven't really been showing up, so I've been taking off. However, there is a poll circulating to find a better time for reading classes. So you're also welcome to participate in the poll as well. Let me know about your availability so I can organize future group classes at a time that's better for everyone, because I think the current time is not that great. So you can find the link on Telegram and have your say about when future reading classes happen. Also, next week, I am taking a bit of a break off of social media. So no new content, no public events, but then the next topic is going to be getting around. So we're going to be talking all about transportation and traveling, that sort of thing. So be sure to check me out for that. All right, perfect. So yeah, if you found any of this helpful, be sure to share it with your friends or invite your friends. Like and subscribe. Anyways, again, this is Axel from Get Speaking English. Thank you so much for coming out. And I can't wait to get speaking English with you super soon. All right. Bye.